If we can give information to lenders where people who have never got loans before are now going to be given loans because we are giving them new information. That is what CRIB needs to be doing.
World over, credit information bureaus have made markets for credit more efficient and access universal. Hi, you're with the Rocketship Experience with Echelon, and today in the studio with us is Nandi Anthony, who is the General Manager of the Credit Information Bureau in Sri Lanka, and we're here to discuss how credit scores can transform an economy. Nandi, welcome to the Rocketship Experience. So let's start here. The last 6 months have been a roller coaster for the credit markets. Now, you have a vantage point from which you can see broadly what's happening with credit in Sri Lanka. What are the trends you've been seeing?
So the obvious trend would be the movement of NPLs,
right?
Which is expected. We are in difficult economic times, and the markets have been having a lot of pressure from different aspects. And obviously, if you look at businesses, they would find it difficult to generate the same levels of business that they generated in this kind of economic conditions. And on top of that, finance costs are things they have to deal with. And that makes it difficult for them to, relatively difficult for them to pay back their loans that they would have taken. So obviously that would lead to movement of NPLs upwards. Historically, we had NPLs, Shamendra, at around 5% levels, let's say overall, sure, right? But we can expect this to even double. So that will not be surprising. But I think more important facts would be to understand what are we doing to come out of that and to make this better, healthier markets.
Give us some context, Nandi, here. Now, as the Credit Information Bureau, we have been used to getting what we call a credit report, which deals with individual borrowers and their past track record with credit.
Yes.
How is such a tool useful in an environment such as this in particular?
So, in a environment like this, funding becomes all important to businesses.
Sure.
Right? The lenders are not going to lend blind. They would want to know, that they are doing a informed lending.
Sure.
And that their portfolios are kept clean. I mean, this is responsible lending, which is what we need to ensure there's stability, there's financial stability in the markets, right? So that is what we will contribute to, right? I mean, if you really look at the CRIB Act and what the CRIB Act talks of to be our main objectives of CRIB is to propagate credit, sure, to all echelons of the market, right? However rural maybe or whatever, to ensure that all these people are included in the credit process, and that they can be a borrower, and then the lenders also have enough information to be able to include them in the lending process.
So essentially, you bring efficiency to the market, and by that you bring access, right?
Correct.
So efficiency in credit can mean price, it can mean speed.
Yes.
What are the other factors that define efficiency in a credit market?
Also, you mentioned speed. Yes. So the loan processing speeds. Right. And that will depend on the kind of level of information that we can provide to the lender.
Sure.
Right. And, you can have traditional or standard methods that we had, and we can improve on them.
Sure.
So that speed, because if it takes a loan to roll out 6 months for a loan to roll out to a person, I mean, if we can cut that down to a couple of weeks, then we have achieved something here,
sure,
right? And I believe we have, right? So that's one thing. And also on the other side, inclusivity.
Right.
If we can give information to lenders where people who have never got loans before are now going to be given loans because we are giving them new information. That is what CRIB needs to be doing, right? And so that is where we have got to, and I think we have made a difference there in terms of increasing the efficiencies.
Sure. One aspect of efficiency is also price, I suppose, Nandi,
Yes,
right?
yes.
The cost of credit that you
Yes.
would obtain, and by virtue of having better quality information that you can then potentially negotiate, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm just circling back to something you have recently launched. Not very recently, but some months or a year ago.
Yeah.
And that is what you're calling a credit score. Now, this is a relatively new concept.
Yes.
Tell us how a credit score is different to a credit report in a sort of market efficiency point of view.
Yes. So actually, credit score is not new to developed markets, but you are right, it is relatively new to us because we came out with a credit score which we have branded CRIB score
Right.
only recently.
Sure.
Right. So, and now our markets are getting used to it.
Sure.
So we would see, the expected thing is we would see a shift of the lenders using the credit report, now moving towards using more credit scores.
Sure.
This will be the trend, and finally
Sure.
they will be using more credit scores.
Sure.
So the credit score is something that takes the data that was on your credit report earlier on, right? If you take credit data, we call it traditional data. So credit data is what are the loans you have taken, how have you paid it back, basically. So that data is fed through into an algorithm, and a score comes out. Score is between 250 is the lowest score to 900.
Sure.
Right? So it's your score can be anywhere in between that range.
Right. So just to clarify something, right? Now, assume somebody's got a poor score,
Yeah.
because maybe they, for whatever reasons, they've had a poor record of dealing with credit.
Yes.
Right. Is that going to potentially hurt you long term? What can a borrower do about a poor score that they may have? We've come through a very bad patch in the economy. We are coming through a bad patch.
That's a very good question, right? So one thing that the score is dynamic. Right. The score will not stay the same what is today to even the number. When you go and get a new credit product like a credit card, a personal loan, housing loan, your score improves actually, right? And every time a lender looks at you, even that is a aspect that can be factored in to your score, right? This can move. That's why the score is dynamic. So you can improve on your score, right? And the one of the sort of eternal complaints of a borrower would be that we don't want lenders to see our history,
right?
In case we have had delays,
difficult period,
difficult periods which people can have, and in that scenario a lender can sort of be reluctant or at certain times not even give credit.
Facility,
so they don't want that to happen. So now with this score there is no history.
Right.
History is fed into an algorithm and a score is taken.
Sure.
Right. So that score, yours can be high, mine can be low, but we are both going to get loans. Right. You might get a high because you have a higher score. You can bargain for a higher limit and a higher loan, and you can bargain for better interest rates.
Sure.
So you were talking about pricing. Here's what we are going to do: create efficiency in pricing. But because I have a lower score doesn't mean I'm not going to get a loan. I'll get a loan, but I will be relatively lower loan than you, obviously. So, we are, I mean, this will prevent indebtedness. But this is a much more better decision making for lenders. Right?
Sure.
And they have embraced this score and they are using that in their credit evaluation process, it will revolutionize the local credit evaluation process and the risk management process as well.
And we've become used to this term of data is the new oil. Data is the top commodity in the world, right? And you have access as the Credit Information Bureau to a set of data that is not available to anybody else in the market. You cannot go and ask banks to sort of tell you what the credit worthiness of their customers is. Only you can do that, right? But there's so much other data in the market. You have a unique set of data, right? If you were to see yourself as a organization that works with data, as data being your main product, what is the potential of crib in an economy in that sense?
That's a huge aspect. I mean, you're right. Crib can play a huge role. It can be as important or more important than the let's say the Colombo Stock Exchange, and we know how important that is. And crib also can be a huge one-stop shop for lenders, borrowers. This is how cribs or credit bureaus are in other developed countries. Right. It makes a huge difference. Let me also take you back a little bit to a question you asked right at the start. With these difficult market conditions, what are the trends? So obviously we spoke about NPLs moving up, etc. What did the crib do during that time, and what was done to help out people during this process? We all know, we had something called moratoriums given to businesses, right? And during that time, what crib did was, we got together with the lenders and we made sure that during that moratorium time, people's arrears is not shown. Right. We don't record the arrears. Arrears is not reported to us. We don't show them.
Right.
So why we do that is, we don't, that way during a difficult time when this moratorium is given to help out people, their chances of obtaining new facilities, etc., are not hindered in any way. Right. So this is a way that crib comes into play, and at the same time, so this is a way of holding back sometimes data. There is also a way of giving more data to help out. So now the question that you're asking, how do you use your data to include people more in the credit process and to make the credit process more efficient? One of the things I would like to talk about today is not only the score, and the score also will be a very much a part of it, but the new system.
Right.
That the new credit bureau system, it's a state-of-the-art credit bureau system that we are coming out with. We have, I believe we have got the we are working together with a top credit bureau service provider, international credit bureau service provider, in bringing this out. It's not a small effort. It took us a couple of years to get here, because obviously, the current credit bureau system we are having has been with us for, let's say, almost close to 15 years. Right. So our the crib member institutions, I mean the banks, the finance companies, the leasing companies, they are fully used to that system. Right. So when you're bringing a totally new credit bureau system, it's a nationwide system. You can imagine you have to shift data. It's called data migration from one system to another. Right? And you have to do that without zero errors. Right. And you have to, without least impact to the users. They have to be making sure that the new system can be used in a way that is more efficient than the previous one, in terms of their credit evaluations, in terms of their risk evaluations, etc. So
that is the operational part of it. So
yes.
What in addition to that will the new system bring to make the markets transparent, efficient, faster?
Yeah. So if the old system, like roughly, now as you know, the data that we have is actually sent to us by banks, finance companies, leasing companies on a monthly basis. Right. So roughly for a month, we would process something like 10 million records.
Right.
We need a month to do that with the existing system. Right. Which is a fairly, let's say, it's now old.
Right.
That is why we are moving into a new state-of-the-art system. So with the new system, the data processing speeds so much that we can do that 10 million records in a day.
Okay.
Right. And the capacities, like, the old system, the capacity is sort of limited.
Right.
So we have now, with the new system, we have enough capacity, and the architecture is such that it's much more scalable.
Right. So one may ask, why do you need the extra capacity? If you had 10 million records and you can process that in a reasonable time,
Yes.
why do you need extra capacity? Do you plan to bring new data into play?
Absolutely. Yes, we plan to bring in new data. We were talking about inclusivity. We were
Right.
talking about people who could never have got a loan before. Right? Because if you have not taken a loan, you don't have a credit record.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
without a credit record, nobody's going to lend to you, right? So, but you may have used a mobile and paid mobile bills.
Sure.
You may have electricity bill, water bill,
Right.
right? You may have paid that. Most people have that.
Is that your intention to bring those records into the system?
Yes. So with the new system, we will look to collect telco data. How
Right.
do you pay your mobile bill?
Sure.
How do you pay your electricity, water bills, utilities? How do you pay your insurance? I mean, you probably using a vehicle and paying an insurance for it, right? How do you pay your insurance premiums, etc. So that data also can be fed to your score algorithm,
Right.
and then you have a score.
Sure.
The moment you have a score, you can go and borrow.
Sure.
So-
So there is a portion of society excluded from the formal credit markets. Those are the banks and finance
Absolutely,
companies. Right?
yes.
But what you're saying is they will still likely have an electricity bill that they are regularly servicing. They are likely to have a mobile phone that they are paying monthly to.
Absolutely.
And if that makes them that much more credit worthy, the system will then be able to generate a score for them.
Absolutely. Because see, one of our main intentions or one main objectives of CRIB is to include people who have never been included before in the credit process, right? So this is definitely going to make that happen.
Sure.
Right? Maybe we are not going to make that happen for everyone, but at least a larger portion of people who are not able to.
Do you have any sense about how big the informal market is versus the formal one?
If you take percentages, right? I mean, when you talk about the informal sectors, you are talking about microfinance.
Sure.
Part of the borrowing mechanisms of SMEs, etc. Right? So, if you take the total value of loans taken, the major portion will be the formal sector.
Obviously. They take bigger loans.
Right? So, relatively, the other one will be smaller. But if you take the number of loans,
Sure.
the smaller loans are more than the bigger loans that create that larger value.
Sure.
Right? So, to that extent, I mean, if you are talking about rural people who are in difficult conditions to borrow, etc., that becomes this microfinance companies, etc., becomes a very important source to them.
Sure.
Right? So, in that scenario, I think it is important that they also are given an opportunity to be connected to CRIB. Right? And SMEs also, I mean, what can CRIB do for SMEs?
Sure. So the current regulatory setup, Nandi, caters makes it possible for you to serve banks and finance companies,
Yes.
right, which are regulated by the central bank.
Yes.
This leaves out microfinance institutions, which are like kind of semi-formal. They are not heavily regulated.
Yes.
How does one bring them into the remit so that they have access to this new credit score?
Yes. So there is one act that
Right.
we are expecting to come out. Right. This act has been worked on recently, and even CRIB has been in a committee, trying to get this done. We also have given our inputs to this draft, etc. So it's called the Credit Regulatory Authority Act.
Okay.
Right. With that, microfinance companies and the informal lenders also will be given CRIB access.
Okay.
Right. So once again, just having lenders and having a system for lending alone won't do. There should be discipline and stability in that scenario. So, microfinance, in the microfinance sector, interest rates are sky high, sometimes going up to 80%, we have heard. So in that scenario, and if you take microfinance sector, it's mainly women who actually are the borrowers, because they are the ones who are involved in the cottage industries, agri, and invariably it's those kind of sectors. So that borrow from microfinance companies. And also, if you take Sri Lanka, we are in the tropics. We are going to have floods. We are going to have droughts, right? In such scenarios, when they find it difficult to pay and then interest rates are so high, so these are the factors that we can help out with. Moment you for in such scenarios, the sector will not get affected if there is discipline.
Sure.
For to have discipline, crib being there helps, because it is no longer microfinance people cannot say, oh, we are lending blind. That's why, because it's a huge risk, therefore we have to charge high interest rates.
Sure.
Moment crib comes into play, they can't say that.
Sure.
Because they are making an informed lending and they have to give it at a decent interest rate. So then it makes it easier for the borrower also to pay back. And then, it's a cycle of discipline that keeps everyone healthy.
And virtuous cycle, potentially those microfinance borrowers then can look forward to graduating after building a credit score.
Absolutely. And they can have their own credit score. We can have a microfinance credit score, right? So and we can give it at a cheaper cost. Even in developed markets now, for instance, microfinance companies can't have their own credit evaluation teams, big teams, because these are small companies, right? So they can't carry a huge overhead in-house. So, but the crib can do that for them at a very small per tick cost, right? We can provide that data that they want, and the technology that they need can be kept in-house in crib. And that's what happens in developed markets. And if you take so that is why this Credit Regulatory Authority Act becomes important. We hope it comes, and we will do everything possible to help out to make that happen. If it comes, it will have connectivity immediately. The microfinance companies will have connectivity to crib.
Let me bring this in now. You talked about crib's role in sort of oiling the credit markets, making them efficient, faster, benefits both borrowers and lenders in that sense, right? By cutting the risk, reducing the risk of decisions. In another angle to that, the Credit Information Bureau is a data company.
Yes.
Also, so you're bringing efficiency to credit markets. You're also a data company.
Correct.
When you step back, what's the future of a Credit Information Bureau? Is your growth going to come because of credit market efficiency, or because of you being a data company?
I think one leads to another. Because we are a data company, we have the ability to create efficiencies in the markets.
Sure.
Let's put it that way,
Sure.
right? So, how do we use data now? And how do we use data into new concepts?
Sure.
Right. I would like to sort of bring out the example of open banking.
Okay.
Right. Open banking is a new concept. I mean, but not so new, but in countries such as, let's say, Singapore, Malaysia, they're using this. Right. This is, I mean, if explained simply, this is where the information about customers for banks, for the lenders, their customer data is freely available to all.
Right.
Right. It's that, this X bank's customers data is only for the X bank. No. All the borrowers' data are freely available to all banks.
So as a score or as absolute data?
It can be in score form. It can be in credit data form.
Okay.
Right. So in this,
what are the privacy implications of that?
Yes. So good question, because what happens is, for this now we know in Sri Lanka also that we've seen now data protection laws have come in.
Yeah, it's called the PDPA.
Yes. So the data protection laws are very important for this.
Okay.
It is the base on which open banking can be dished out.
All right. Okay.
Right. So because that shows that will sort of put down a discipline for people who hold data, people who give data, and people who hold data and disseminate data. They will have to act with discipline through these data protection laws. Earlier we had something called the CRIB Act, but now we will have data protection laws together with that, which will make it, you were talking about the privacy and, the sensitivity of data, all that will be protected through this.
So, but this data in open banking, the data you're talking about is not anonymized. Nandi's or Shamindra's data will be visible as Nandi's and Shamindra's data. It's just that the privacy laws are expected to prevent abuse or misuse of that data.
Yeah. So it is, what happens is, like, there will be people as usual providing data, like banks, etc., finance companies, leasing companies. But there will be data holders in the middle who will hold and freely make it available to all. Right? Now, in the open banking space, most of the time it can be either credit bureaus, it can be even central banks, it can be even fintech companies. Right? Because fintech companies have the technology. Right? But you have to understand that even a central bank will trust the credit bureau. And credit bureaus already collect data from banks, finance companies, leasing companies, etc., who trust them. Right? So because of that simple reason, in the open banking space, credit bureau companies have become the main, some of the main players holding the data and giving it freely out. They are trusted more. Right? So that combination works better. And in fact, we see a new phenomenon where credit bureau companies are going and buying fintech companies who have that technology. I mean, a good example is CRIF, one of the biggest players in the world in credit bureau space. They have gone and bought their own fintech company for open banking. Right? So, our credit bureau also can play that role, and we are also not a small player. I'm very happy to say our credit bureau was formed before our larger neighbors like India, China, before that. Right? And in 2021 we won the most innovative credit bureau South Asia award, because all our products are now given out on APIs. Right? I mean, person from Kabidigo level or Dehiyata Kandiya doesn't have to, come all the way to Colombo to get it. It's online. You can get your scores online. You can get your, report online. You don't even have to go to your branch anymore. You can just, register online and you can get your, any credit product that the bureau gives out online. So we have bought those efficiencies. We have bought that remote connectivity. We have done all of that. So with the new system, that is what's going to be the game changer. Right? And in terms of open banking, in terms of other new concepts that are coming in, will play a huge role. And for that is why we have bought in this new state-of-the-art credit bureau system. I was talking about, data processing speeds, capacities that will be enhanced. I didn't talk about new products, things like alerts. For instance, if you on a mobile, if you are going to be told, okay, you are 3 days away from your next payment for your loan, you become a more disciplined person. You probably won't miss out on your payment, etc. And if the banks are, if the lenders are also alerted, I mean, in developed markets, alerts are a huge product. Millions of alerts go out. It makes the discipline in the market happen. Right? So that's one. Then about portfolio management for lenders. Right? They have the slice and dice opportunity to make their own reports, and get enough data to cross-sell, and see, okay, can we give out more credit cards? Are we falling short there? So that makes the lending market that much more. It also benefits the borrowers. If you take a score, right? I mean, score also everybody doesn't have traditional collateral. Everybody doesn't have land building, but the score is a tool to bargain. You can go and say, look, I have a 750, 800 score. Don't lend to me at 20%. Lend to me at 10%. Or give me a high limit. I'm creditworthy here. Right? So you can bargain for, better terms, etc. That's what our data brings out. That's what our new products, our new system will bring about to the market. And One of the things that I would also want to say is that Sri Lankan Credit Bureau is also unique because it's under our umbrella that the secure transaction registry will be kept. Shamindra,
Okay,
you
just-
brought out a good point.
Yeah, just explain to us what this secure transaction registry is really quickly.
Yeah, you brought out a good point about microfinance, etc., being an important source of for borrowers. So is SMEs. If you take SMEs, the Secure Transaction Registry (STR) we call it. There is an STR Act also in the country. At the moment, it is being amended to enhance it. And it should happen very soon. It's actually at a cabinet approval stage, I believe, and it should happen very soon. When that happens, there will be a credit regulatory authority established. And CRIB will be a service provider providing this digital registry called the Secure Transaction Registry.
Okay, so just to clarify, so now we are used to banks wanting collateral
Yes.
in terms of assets that are immovable, like property, right? The STR Act will make it possible for companies or individuals to register movable assets.
Absolutely. So it can be machinery, tables, chairs, whatever,
Right.
Cars, any whatever the movable assets,
Sure.
right? You can, because SMEs may, just like I told before, everybody may not have land, building, the traditional collateral, right? So these movables become that much more important to these SMEs.
Sure, because they can borrow against them or use them as collateral.
Absolutely. So you can go register it on this digital registry and borrow against that.
Sure.
So in fact, this is so important, in small businesses that the earlier we had something called the ease of doing business index. They gave a lot of points for this STR. Right, so in Sri Lanka is unique. We have that STR already under the umbrella of the CRIB.
Sure.
Right, once that act comes through and once that authority is formed, we will be a service provider, maintaining that registry for them.
Sure.
Right, and already this is written in-house. This technology is been written in-house, and already it is functioning. That CRIBs, member institutions are doing searches on this and using that even now. But this will be opened out to the public with the authority being formed, with the act coming out, the amended act coming out. Then that will be again a game changer for SMEs. So this is how CRIB can create huge efficiencies in the market. Look out for our new state-of-the-art credit bureau system. This is what we are going to be very proud of. We've done a very successful pilot run. We've done a very successful parallel run. Now we are setting dates. Probably within the next month or so it will go live.
So in 2022 the system is likely to go live for
Absolutely.
all
Before the end of this year, definitely it will go live.
Brilliant. This has been a informative and insightful chat, Nandi. Surely you've sort of managed to refocus our attention on what the potential of credit scores and the CRIB's role as a data aggregator. The efficiencies that it can bring to financial and other markets in Sri Lanka. Wonderful to have you here. Thank you for joining the Rocketship Experience.
Thank you, Shamindra. Thank you, Echelon. Thanks.